In the biting cold of December 1944, as World War II seemed to be drawing to a close, Hitler unleashed one final, desperate gamble. This was Operation Watch on the Rhine, a surprise attack so massive and so audacious it would become known to history as the Battle of the Bulge. It was Germany's last major offensive on the Western Front, a furious, all-or-nothing push, designed to shatter the Allied forces and change the very course of the war. By late 1944, the Allies had fought their way across France and were pushing towards Germany itself. Morale was high, and many believed the war would be over by Christmas. But this confidence hit a critical weakness. The Allied supply lines were stretched dangerously thin, and their forces were exhausted after months of relentless fighting. Along the densely wooded Ardennes region of Belgium and Luxembourg, the front line was held by a mix of battle-weary veterans and inexperienced new arrivals. The Allies considered this rough, forested terrain impassable for a large-scale armored assault, a fatal miscalculation. Hitler saw this as his last chance. His plan was breathtakingly ambitious: smash through the weak Allied lines in the Ardennes with a massive force of tanks and infantry. The goal was to race to the coast, capture the vital port city of Antwerp, and in doing so, split the American and British armies. He believed this catastrophic blow would force the Western Allies to negotiate a separate peace, allowing Germany to turn its full attention to the brutal war against the Soviet Union on the Eastern Front. It was a high-stakes roll of the dice, and everything depended on one thing: surprise. To achieve this, the Germans assembled a colossal force in absolute secrecy. Over 250,000 soldiers, including elite SS Panzer divisions, along with 1,200 tanks and thousands of artillery pieces, were moved into position under the cover of darkness. Radio silence was strictly enforced. Soldiers were told they were simply being moved to a rest area. The deception was nearly perfect. While Allied intelligence had picked up some hints of a German buildup, they completely underestimated its scale and intent, dismissing it as a potential small, local counterattack. They were about to be proven catastrophically wrong. On the freezing morning of December 16, 1944, the quiet was shattered by the roar of a massive German artillery barrage. The Battle of the Bulge had begun. German panzer divisions surged forward into the snow-covered Ardennes forest, punching through the thinly held American lines. The initial shock and confusion were immense. Overwhelmed and outnumbered, many American units were forced into a desperate retreat, while others were surrounded and captured. The German advance was swift, creating a massive bulge in the Allied front line that stretched 60 miles wide and nearly 50 miles deep. This initial success, however, was marred by terrible atrocities. Near the town of Malmedy, SS troops brutally executed 84 unarmed American prisoners of war, an act of barbarism that only hardened Allied resolve. But the German blitzkrieg soon started to lose its momentum. The rugged terrain of the Ardennes with its narrow winding roads created bottlenecks that slowed the German tanks to a crawl. And the American soldiers, though initially caught by surprise, began to fight back with ferocious tenacity. Small, isolated units held their ground, delaying the German advance and buying precious time for the Allies to organize a response. One name became legendary in this desperate fight: Bastogne. This small Belgian town was a critical road junction, and holding it was key to stopping the German offensive. Surrounded and besieged, the American 101st Airborne Division, along with elements of the 10th Armored Division, refused to surrender. When the German commander sent a message demanding they give up, the American commander, Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, gave a now famous one-word reply: nuts. It was a defiant symbol of American grit. The defenders of Bastogne held on against overwhelming odds, their courage becoming a rallying cry for the entire Allied effort. Meanwhile, a brilliant and decisive move was unfolding to their south. General George Patton, commander of the U.S. Third Army, performed a logistical miracle. In a matter of days, he pivoted his entire army 90 degrees and sent them racing north through the snow and ice to relieve the besieged defenders of Bastogne. It was an incredible feat of generalship and determination. On December 26, Patton's tanks broke through the German lines, lifting the siege of Bastogne and turning the tide of the battle. Just as crucial was the weather. For the first week of the battle, thick fog and snow had grounded the powerful Allied air forces. But on December 23, the skies finally cleared. It was a turning point. Swarms of Allied fighter bombers and heavy bombers descended upon the German columns. They relentlessly attacked German tanks, trucks, and supply lines, creating what the Germans called a fighter-bomber racecourse. With no fuel, no ammunition, and no way to resupply, the German war machine ground to a halt. The German soldiers were exhausted, frozen, and starving. The dream of reaching Antwerp had vanished. By the 1st of January 1945, the German offensive was officially over. Now it was the Allies' turn. They launched a massive counteroffensive from both the north and the south, squeezing the Bulge from both sides. The fighting was still brutal and bloody, as the Germans fought a bitter retreat through the frozen landscape. But the outcome was no longer in doubt. By January 25, the Allies had pushed the Germans back to their original starting lines. The Bulge was gone. The cost of this victory was staggering. The Battle of the Bulge was the largest and bloodiest single battle fought by the United States in World War II. The U.S. suffered over 75,000 casualties killed, wounded, or missing. In total, the Allies had nearly 90,000 casualties, but the German losses were catastrophic and, more importantly, irreplaceable. They lost around 100,000 soldiers and over 600 of their best remaining tanks. These were resources Germany simply could not afford to lose. Hitler's final gamble had failed. The Battle of the Bulge had exhausted the last of Germany's offensive strength. It had shattered its elite divisions and drained its fuel reserves. From this point on, the German army on the Western Front could only retreat. The battle had been a testament to the incredible resilience and bravery of the American soldiers who held the line against impossible odds. It demonstrated the critical importance of air power, logistics, and bold leadership in modern war. Less than 4 months later, Allied forces would cross the Rhine River, and on May 8, 1945, Germany surrendered unconditionally. The Battle of the Bulge was Nazi Germany's last gasp, a final, violent spasm that ultimately sealed its doom and paved the way for victory in Europe. Thank you for watching. If you found this look into one of history's most pivotal battles interesting, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories from the past. See you next time.